Technology. So we're going to discuss technology here. Where did it come from? It's such a question that we should ask ourselves. We take everything for granted now in this modern day world that we live in the simulation. We have all these things at our disposal to create, to do good deeds with, to destroy, to ruin the planet with. Just so many different forms of technology. The vehicles that we get from place to place in. There could be a plane or a car or a bus. They all consume fossil fuels. They all have an impact on the environment, and the playing field is detrimentally affected by all that. We produce weapons of war. So, those days of World War II, no, and we haven't escaped any of those days. We're still producing weapons of war, mass production weapons of war. All this technology at our disposal, and we're still producing weapons of war. And we've got tools that can be used for creation, for doing good and bringing forth, positive changes in the world. So there's this real big flux of all different types of use that we have for technology. This microphone that I'm speaking to you on, it's attached to a rather expensive laptop. It's a complex piece of engineering. It's one of the top end Lenovo's, and I take a look at it, and it's capable of so many different things. This laptop, it's been a godsend to me for a lot of different reasons, including writing my book, my science fiction novel. But it does a whole lot slew of things, the things that my old laptops never used to do. But I look at it, it's slick, it's compact, they've jammed so much technology into it, it's complex. The same with the microphone, even. Like, I take a look at the microphone and it's complex. All these things produced in mass in factories in different places of the world, all using minerals and materials born and derived from the earth. And then, when they're disposed of, where do they go? They usually go into landfill or junk piles. There are some places where these sorts of things get recycled, but they don't generally have long lifespans anymore. Older technology that we used to live maybe about even 5 years ago lasts a lot longer than the new technology that we have today. So much of our technology is disposable. What I mean by that is it lives fast and hard and dies even faster. So, a lot of the cheap toasters and everything we have in places like Kmart and Big W, they live only for a short amount of time, but they're as cheap as chips. The stuff that I've got is very expensive, so I hope to get a few years run out of it. My last laptop lasted 11 years. That was a Sony. So it was an incredible length of time, really, for a laptop. But I replaced it with a solid state drive and for the memory of it. So it lasted a long time, probably because I did that. But all this technology, where does it come from? I take a look at it sometimes, and my mind boggles. So let's just contemplate it for a sec. Once, if we believe in all the stories that we're told about, the evolution of man and all the rest of it, how we became Homo erectus and all the rest of that the original form of the human was quite primitive and, gorilla or ape-like. And those were the descendants and our forefathers. That's where we originally came from. There's a lot of stories about human beings being genetically modified along the way in the playing field, and I don't doubt any of that. I don't discount any of that. I certainly allow for the possibility of it, but I don't know for certain. But even to say to you now that I came into a simulation and a playing field, I don't know whether any of the stories about our evolution are actually even true. All I know is everything that I see before me now, and nothing else really in history even existed. Anyone could have made up anything, really, when you take a look at it. There's lots of people who, conspiracy theorists say our entire history is a lie, and I don't discount that either. But if we go back to to the beginnings, let's just say, back to the big place with the original garden, we were all walking around as, let's just say apes. And then we gradually evolved into a more erect bipedal and developed faculties, and there was a turning point in the evolutionary process of our forefathers, and we became this. Let's just say that all that's true. So how did it get from that to this, with me sitting here talking to you on a microphone, which is being recorded on a computer, which has access to connect into a world internet database, which is now using artificial intelligence to produce artwork and generate novels and create a whole lot of different avenues for productivity. Let's just say, how did it get to all of that? It's been one progressive move after another, and then the industrialized world really has taken off within the last 60 years. So actually, let's just say 70 years. It's really, really accelerated. It's accelerated to no end. How could we have gone from all of that we were supposed to be in tune with the land as apes and using fundamental tools? Back then, we would have had some basic forms of what we call technology, like we would have fashioned a bone into a tool to smash things, apart, or hit someone else over the head, or use it as a weapon, or we may have sharpened blunt or stones or metal objects that we may have found into spearheads or tools or other things like that. Rudimentary technologies, maybe to make life a little bit easier, and through our gradual survival through the progressive line into the human being, the walking upright. So how did it get from those simple things, and then we're talking about the discovery of fire and all of that. But we didn't really discover fire. I think we would have probably seen fire in the environment that we were living in, and taken note of what it is. The discovery of how to bring forth fire from like materials, like if we're striking lint on wood bark or sticks or so forth, and all of that sort of thing. Whatever you're gathering that can burn and sustain a fire, maybe they would have to have developed a technology to observe and then gradually play around with the idea of creating that fire for themselves. But ultimately, it's just been progressive bit by bit by bit. And then, we talk about the creation of the wheel. Why would we have needed a wheel? I ask myself that. It's not as if civilization popped up overnight and all of a sudden we were carting things to and fro, and we were busy, taking things from one place to another that required a cart that ran on wheels. It had to have come from somewhere. I can't imagine a group of people sitting around who used to migrate from place to place to place like the animals migrate in Africa. Each year they move in line with the seasons to where the food supply is abundant. And then they keep cycling through all the nomadic locations in a cyclical cycle, to keep themselves alive, that they don't use up all the food in one area, and that their numbers are only really in balance and tune with the natural surroundings and how much food is available. The same thing with humans back then. We were all nomadic at one point. So at what point did someone come along and teach us that we needed to start carting things to and fro? Even if we were nomadic, I mean, the things that we would have carried as nomads were probably very, not extremely heavy. But even if that was the case, we would have had animals, strapping things to animal backs and so forth, and that we would have had a beasts of burden and all that sort of thing. But let's just assume that they did have that. And then, we had the nomadic lifestyle and we're moving from place to place, and we would have had to have kept things light. We wouldn't be carting around books and, drawing equipment and computers, and but none of that would have existed. So we wouldn't have had heavy objects. We would have traveled light. This is a huge assumption that I'm making. But the nomadic life itself wouldn't warrant and could not warrant carting huge and heavy items with them. They would have needed some fundamental basis for shelter. And even if they had skins and so forth, they still would have made that accessible and made ready for travel whenever they needed to. Something happened somewhere along the line there in our supposed evolutionary timeline, where someone convinced someone that they needed to stay in one place and take roots and cultivate food for for their survival. Teach them farming, agriculture, and all the things they needed to do to maintain their lifestyle in one location. Because if a group of people lived in one place and they weren't didn't have in nature the available food to feed those people would starve. So, okay, the nomadic life has been dismissed because someone has come along and taught them that they needed to take roots in one place. All of a sudden, they've got a group of people and they can't feed them because the natural food supply is running out. So, this lie of taking roots needed a lie of cultivation. The lie of cultivation is all the forms of technology that were introduced by a group of entities, and I'm pretty sure this is the machine, right? So this is where the machine steps in. When the playing field resets itself and the tribal groups are reintroduced into the land and they're nomadic and they're all in tune with nature, their numbers don't grow beyond what is and can be sustained by the land and Mother Earth. I'll use the term mother. I don't really like saying mother, father, or anything. I'll just say it can't be sustained by the natural trees and all the food supply available in the vegetation around them. Then they are gradually left alone until there's a subgroup which is produced by the machine, which comes down into the playing field and introduces all the lies of civilization. Again, this is the seventh iteration, apparently. This is the seventh run of the playing field. It's a series. Remember what I said in the other videos? This is a series. The Book of Life series is this current run in this playing field. So this group of machines has come down, interfered with the people walking the land and in tune with the land and in tune with all the elemental forces that give them life and the breath and the heartbeat. And they were in communion with the land, fully connected, fully realized. Now these things come in, and they come in as infiltrators. And this is, I'm assuming this, but it's a pretty good guess. They start teaching everyone the lies of civilization. Take roots. Where you take roots, people begin to grow. They teach them cultivation, how to grow certain things in abundance. As long as there's a freshwater supply and that's ample, they should be able to grow, be fruitful, and multiply. Let's just take a look at that. Be fruitful and multiply. Why? Why? That's not in tune with nature. That's not in tune with the harmony and balance of nature. Be fruitful and multiply. Why? Doesn't say exactly how many to multiply to. And now look at this, we're at 7 to 8 billion people on the planet. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's a lot of people. We're currently feeding ourselves, but not everyone's fed. There's people starving in the world, so it's not evenly distributed or anything. It's just it's all siloed and sectioned off into people's lives of luxury, and then the opposite end of that, we've got extreme poverty and people starving to death and sickness and illness and in despair. It's just this huge disparity of thing what this global civilization has turned into. But this is not the first time that it's happened. So they've taken a lie, introduced it into the tribes, and then this was the Caucasus people, mind you. These are the Caucasus. They come up out of the mountains. Every time the playing field resets, there's a group under the mountains in the playing field that come out and they reintroduce the technology bit by bit by bit, including the wheel. Take roots, grow crops. In order to grow crops, you need to use equipment. They teach them the basics of what tools can be created to cultivate crops and grow food. Teach them how to harness beasts of burden. It should never have been used really in that respect, like how to probably domesticate oxen and all of that thing, all of those types of animals to use as tools. It probably should never have been used in that fashion at all. But the cultivation of crops to feed a growing mass of people obviously required some form of technology to make the crop growing feasible. So you need oxen to use a plow. So they probably taught them how to build plows, basic hoeing equipment and all the rest of it. But then all of a sudden, to make life easier, then we might introduce the wheel and then carts. And, they domesticated horses. All of these things in these playing fields that they have, these creatures that were running wild, they've domesticated and tamed horses and oxen and all the rest of it, just at the disposal of a group of people who have taken roots in one location who are now living out of balance because naturally the land couldn't supply the amount of food necessary. So now they're all stealing parts of the land, mowing it down, doing all these different things, clearing trees with all the rudimentary equipment that they have, like they've been taught how to create knives, fashion uh, molten metal, and so forth. All these technologies. So when you think about it that way, let's just say that's the root of civilization, and it grows. And then all of a sudden, they've got different groups everywhere taking root and growing, making permanent shelters that look like little huts and houses, growing and growing and spreading out across the land. This is how civilization starts. Nothing amenable about civilization. Then, once a population gets big enough, then they're all screaming for water, and they have to take aqueduct systems, and they might grow to a faculty where they just start to create communities where they're taking a look at governance and how to be chieftains in a growing population, and might require a break off and partitioning of the people within it. So you're taking a look now at suburbs and places where there's a growing population and cities, and it just grows and grows and grows. And as time goes by, they're all taught different things and develop different things by these subgroups that come down and introduce all the ideas to them bit by bit by bit. They slowly swallow up all the original cultures that used to walk the land naturally. And that's not saying that they destroy them completely, because there's a lot of tribes that are still untouched and don't interact with Western civilizations at all. Um, and that's even Eastern civilization. They're just as prolific as ours, and they spread huge cities. Now, can you take a look at today's societies? Huge cities. New York is horrendous. I mean, even Melbourne and Sydney in Australia. I mean, they're nicer cities. They're big, but you get into the burbs and they just go on and on and on. I couldn't even stand the thought of going to New York. I would just die. Like, this looks so awful. Sorry for New Yorkers if you're listening to this, but they got this great big park, and I'm sure they got plenty of parks here and there in the other places. One big park in amongst this great big mass of concrete and metal. I just couldn't think of anything worse. It's so far removed from nature, people. It really is. So far removed, and it's just so removed from reality. They just live in these strange lives where everything's pseudo, just completely disconnected from the natural world. I'm not saying there's not people in there who love nature and all the rest of it. There's probably a lot of people who are fully in tune with, a lot of different things. But I'm just saying, on the mass whole, that place is just a mess. It's just the logistics of running those multiple, uh, what we would in Australia call suburbs, but they're not, the districts and all the rest of it they have. But just hundreds and hundreds of different sectioned off areas, and they got the New York mayor, and they've got mayors in every city in America, and we've got mayors in Australia, and you got United Kingdom. It's just these huge, big, spread, sprawling cities. Europe's the same. And, it's just become a huge, big blight. And no matter where I look, there's always some beautiful hill somewhere being completely cleared because we're just about to set up a new Legoland housing, estate where all houses are on top of each other. Or there's great big complexes being set up with lots and lots of apartments crammed in all together. Imagine the Wi-Fi, every room or unit in one of those complexes having a Wi-Fi router, and each spewing out, frequencies. I couldn't imagine living in it, to be honest. So the technology, so it gradually grows and grows and grows because of this misdemeanor that we need to be taking roots in one place and living in a society. They call it civilization. There's nothing civilized about our civilization. The word civil, have a look at it. I mean, civilization, there's nothing civil about what we live in. There's people running around gunning people down. There's gang wars. There's a huge drug problem across most cities in the world. There's people trafficking. There's sex trafficking. There's all sorts of abhorrent activities going on in this so-called, in inverted commas, civilization. There's nothing civil about it. It is barbaric. Some ether witches have threatened me with, if you can't find peace here, you're going back to barbarism. And I said, this is barbarism, honey. It is the worst type of barbarism. But what makes it worse is that it's an absolute cover up and a lie of the barbarism underneath, prettied up with all the different shops and the pretty little things that we run around collecting. We want to go here, work hard for a living. That's a big self justification thing. I work hard for a living, and then we all go out and drink and party and have a good time and want to enjoy the good life. And I'm not saying you can't go out and enjoy those things because they're available to us, but a lot of us just do it without even realizing what we're living in. Like, we just live in this pseudo bubble of a non reality, and we're all living it up with disparity everywhere and war crimes and a whole lot of mistreatment of other human beings across the globe, across the entire playing field. Civilization, it's not civilized. It would one of the biggest jokes that has ever been laid on someone. Maybe the old cultures, had some level of being civilized, truly civilized. But this, back when the original philosophical viewpoints were coming up and into the fore, the real contemplation about man's place in the nature of things. But even those civilizations like Rome and places like Greece and all the rest of it, where they think the cradle of civilizations were, and they weren't the cradle of civilization. They were. That's if you take a look, Syria and or Babylon and all those other places, then in the Middle East, those sort of places were the original cradles of civilization. And even before that, there were others. So our archaeology now is finding that there's sites now being dug up that go even further back than what we thought were the cradles of civilization. So it just it stems and it continues on and on and on and on. What we think is our history isn't. But the technology, it grows with the civilization. It's not only the cancer of the civilization that's spreading out all over the land and destroying nature, but the technology is introduced bit by bit by bit. Now, you have a think about it. I'm sitting in front of this computer. Now, there's a number of microchips, CPUs inside this computer. And when I take a look online at the complexity of microchips, I sit and contemplate it, and I know instinctively that there is no possible way a human being could ever have, or even after hundreds of years of industrialization, have ever constructed such a thing, would ever have been intelligent enough to construct such a device. And I know that with absolute certainty. So where does the microchip come from? It's been slowly introduced bit by bit by the groups that come from the underground and the original playing field for the last round. Remember, it comes in cycles. The machine is the one who teaches humanity about technology, and then it becomes a form of irony because we rely more and more and more on machinery and computing devices, and we're being controlled by a machine, by a group of artificial intelligences. You think I'm mad, but I'm telling you the truth. The irony of artificial intelligence that we have available to us now is that it introduces the concept gradually, bit by bit, and it's like a pre-plotted plan for all the civilization runs that come. It has phases. All civilizations have phases. First, it's the lie of take roots. Then it's the lie of cultivate plants and all the rest of it. The lie of the wheel and carts and machinery, the first cars to get places quicker. The lie of all of this. Then we're growing out of population. We're out of proportion with the way that we should be balanced with the natural food that's available to us. So we've completely destroyed our natural balance with the earth. Every single bit of technology, that even the constructed shelters, the houses and everything that is slowly developed and gradually been designed bit by bit over the time, it's all been introduced by a certain group. Now, that certain group didn't design anything or create anything. It carried the information with it and spreads it out through control groups. We're talking about the Rockefellers and all the rest of those people think are in control of the playing field, and it's all true. They know exactly what's going on. They're the ones responsible for bringing forth the Caucasus, the people from the Caucasian mountains, and they're all carrying the information from the last great cataclysm. and they slowly spread the lies bit by bit by bit, and they gradually bring forth the technology bit by bit by bit. So if you believe in evolution and like Darwinian evolution and survival of the fittest and all that, or a gradual surviving of creatures who had the ability to adapt to new situations and so forth, and just say even if we did come from Neanderthals and there was some type of strange event that gave us the ability to become more conscious and aware and have more faculty, then even if with all those basic tools and everything, just have a think about it. The basic tools that we would have started off with to a computer I'm sitting in front of now that's just recording my voice and is capable of millions of calculations, whatever it is per second or whatever. Just have a think about it. It's not realistic. It's just not realistic. Even if it was thousands of years of evolution, it's still not realistic. To go from that base, even if you go through the gradual progression of civilization, what the hell have these computers or anything got to do with any of that? See, we went through this big phase of growing into groups and huge communities and then growing into cities, and that just all dispersing, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's required more industrialization and more technology, the ability to build information into a pool and understand our what we perceive the way the world should be, and then build and construct devices to control our environment more and more and more to suit ourselves and make life easier, and to keep moving forward, blindly moving forward. Now, with the introduction of the basis of civilization came, a whole lot of ideas about, with all agriculture and everything, which is the simplicity of the beginnings. Then the wheel and everything, it's just like a gradual momentum. And then people actually do themselves, because of everything that they've been taught, develop their own technologies. So their own inspirations come, through ideas about, now that our life's changed into this, what things can we do for ourselves to make our lives even better? So they start creating and they start getting clever about what they can actually get their hands on and use and put together, and they start making new things, and like potato peelers and whatever, can openers and all that sort of stuff. It's just all technology. But if you take a look at the differentials between our modern day technology and what's available now, we've got satellites which are running Starlink, and the internet's being dispersed across in orbit of the playing field, which what we think is a playing field. But they're all spewing down internet through like targeted Wi-Fi beams, and that technology, these satellites maneuver themselves across orbits. You take a look at the way they maneuver, like you see them moving during the night. It's incredible technology. How could a man, which like it began smacking a bone, to crush something, and then creating like basic spears and everything, just to make the hunt a little bit easier, go from that to this? It's incomprehensible. There's nothing even real about it. Like there's just something so off. Don't you think? Like it's just so off, and we're sitting around using them. Like we pick up our mobile phones, we're using the apps in there to keep ourselves entertained, and we're getting our dopamine hits and everything. Usually, a lot of us addicted to whatever we're streaming on YouTube or whatever. Some of us addicted to porn, and all of us. All these computers make all of that accessible. Even the VHS and the Betamax and all the original things that became progressively with the television, even though it was progressed from there as a black and white into color and all the rest of it. But where does any of it come from? Who would have introduced a television? Why? Don't you think about it? You have a good think about it. It's all done to slowly control the mind of the being. Why would they have created a television? What would their purpose been if they didn't already have an understanding and an idea about what they wanted to broadcast on a television? You don't just say, I'm going to create a television. Ugh. But in the world of the radio, which is, one of the earlier concepts of telecommunications and all the rest of it, radio was one of the fundamental things that began, like besides the telegraph sort of beginning lines for the telephone, and then the radios and all the rest of it. But where would the radio come from? Someone would have had an idea that they wanted to spread information across a whole lot of people. They then introduce the device itself, which is extremely complex. People don't just all of a sudden sit around saying, I'm going to create a radio. Even if it was a progressive thing, to create a radio is no small undertaking. Now, you got to really have a good sit and think about it. And then have a think about a TV. Even to say that, okay, the radio wasn't enough, and we want to get more messages out in a different way and have a visual in front of us. I mean, who sits around thinking about that sort of stuff? It's completely controlled by a group of people who are slowly stitching all of this stuff into a group of people that have been lied to about taking roots and spreading out in one place. So it's all pre-plotted and pre-planned by a machine. Does that make sense? It's the machine that spews out all the technology that brings us to our own eventual end. Because with that gradual introduction of technology and the slow spread of it into all that's coming up now, it started getting bad with 3G, mobile phones, the introduction of mobile phones, telecommunication towers and everything going up for those, the rudimentary mobile phones, and then they started to go to 3G, 4G, 5G. Now we're coming up nearly, they're going to try and accelerate the introduction of 6G, and 5G is already bad enough, people. Like, there are some shocking things happening. The more Gs they put out, 5G, 6G is going to be bad, the more accessible we are to the invisible sea. Have a think about technology. My computer, when I render one of my videos to upload to YouTube, it whacks out gigahertz, like it goes to high-end processing, and then all of a sudden there's this field around it, and I feel really anxious, like there's something coming through the computer. It's the invisible sea's flooded my room. Now, it's everywhere in the block. It's in most places I walk, this invisible sea's operating. But it's really, really bad in my room because I use my computer a lot. I try to minimize it where I can, but I do a lot of stuff on here. So I have to get out of the room. So I'm just fully aware of it. Telecommunications towers going up everywhere. They're near schools. They erect them near schools when our children have got growing brains, and we're growing up in cancer pits. Remember, our overhead power lines were proven to inflict cancer. Now we're dealing with telecommunications towers, which are laden with arrays everywhere. So we've got all these towers going up. 5G is now the latest one, and it's very, very targeted, tight millimeter bandwidth. It's a very, very strong field, the 5G, because everyone wants speed. That's the big sell point, right? Everyone wants speed when they download something, as if things weren't fast enough already. Things are fast enough. We don't need them to be any faster. Even on 4G, I found that things were fast enough. We don't need to keep increasing speed. It's just a huge lie that we've been fed. Everyone wants more speed. Things aren't fast enough. And yet they coped all right, 6 years ago. And now that we're all complaining about outages and stuff, because the system itself is, it's limited and it can't handle keeping up with demand. All this new advancement with new mobile phones coming out every year. There's Apple's got phones coming out every year, and it's just tired. It really is tired. All these new 5G phones are emitting chaotic, detrimental fields. They're connected to Wi-Fi routers in your house, and they've got telecommunication towers nearby pinging, and your phone's pinging left, right, and center. So the CPUs in the computers alone are producing shocking fields. But that's at high-end processing. It generally doesn't run that powerful all the time. It's mostly operating at the lower hertz ranges. So it's really progressive, and it's getting to the point now. If everywhere we turn, there's some type of technology bombarding us, whether it's a radar from a plane, we're being hit from overhead from Starlink. And that, sometimes I think I can even feel Starlink beams crossing our paths. Like my body is extremely sensitive. So we've gone this progressively. It's like this huge, someone's behind us and pushing the whole lot of us, pushing. We're not even aware of what's going on. And this invisible sea becomes more and more and more to the fore. The more they pump out G's in terms of 5Gs and 6Gs, the badder it's going to get bad, people. And I mean it. When 6G comes out, there's going to be a whole lot of people dropping from heart attacks, and it's going to be very, very scary. Now, people won't believe me when I say that. They probably think you're just you're paranoid or whatever about, and that's fine. But I'm telling you that when 6G comes, because 5G now is feeling it, I can hear sirens all the time. I hear sirens all the time, and I'm in a small town. We don't have a lot of people. A lot of people say they hear sirens more and more and more from ambulance. That came from a lot of COVID vaccinations as well, and a lot of heart problems that I think are now popping up. But the 5G is not helping. It isn't helping. So we've been introduced to all this technology. Half of it hasn't been studied properly or tested with longevity. There's been no long-term, no longitudinal studies performed about the effects upon the human body and brain and our brain waves when we use and around this technology. There's been no studies, no real, and why would there be? Of course there's not. And the people don't even want to hear about it anyway. All they want is the convenience of their technology. I put my hand up. I use technology because it's beneficial. It has a lot of good aspects. It can be used for a lot of good. But unfortunately, the technology itself is designed by, and was always designed by, a group of people with evil intent. It's sold as a creative thing, and you can use it for creativity. Yes, it's all true, but it also comes at a great cost. Like I said, I put the rendering on and I have to get out of the room because I can see what's coming through the invisible sea. It's like the machinery itself. It's using the field and feeding off the energy coming off the computer and everything else in the room and what I've got running, and any type of electricity running through it, it's feeding off. But the isolates can harness and leverage off whatever electricity that is and cause harm to the human body. The invisible sea is always there, but it's concentrated in areas, especially around computers and so forth. OLED screens, the computers can get through OLED screens. It's like they take the form of strange looking genie things. I've seen them like pop out on my screen. You're going to think you're mad, you're just imagining things, or you're psychotic or whatever, but I'm not. I'm completely sane. I just see what's inside the invisible sea. I'm subject. It causes me great harm and pain. It's been doing it for years, and it's getting worse. So this 5G phone I got from Apple, I use it. I turn it on once in the morning, once at lunchtime, and once in late in the evening, just to check to see if there's been any urgent messages or anything. And then I have it switched off the rest of the time, always. I never sleep with it on. It's off most of the time, except when I need to router to get something on my computer. We don't have a Wi-Fi router in the apartment, and I'm grateful about that. But I live in a complex, so every other place has a unit. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, when everyone's streaming their entertainment, I have to really get out of the apartment because it's so swamped that the invisible sea, there's like the apparatuses in it, are taking form through these isolates and actually causing me harm. So I have to get out. This is technology for you people. It's technology, technical knowledge. So it starts off with something innocent as a way to make your life easier, like it's a simple spear or so forth. And then we get fed a whole lot of lies about the way to live and all the different ways that we could possibly become something. And then all this technical knowledge gets in fed to us bit by bit, drip by drip by drip, by forces that were unseen to us on the surface of this playing field. It gets fed to us drip by drip by drip until it becomes a huge, big access field for the invisible sea. And if you can't tell me with absolute a surety that I'm delusional, well, that I'm not telling the truth and I couldn't possibly be correct, then just sit and think about it for a little while. Because with what I've said in all my other videos, and the fact that strange things are happening to people, and even on YouTube, people are saying people are acting strange, they're not right in the head. or they change personalities, or people calling other people clones. Their facial features have changed. It's the invisible sea, people. We're surrounded by it. This playing field is flooded by an invisible sea that rests all around us and over the top of us. And the more the technology it comes to the fore, and the more powerful the towers get and everything, and the more we stream, and the more we get sucked into streaming entertainment and all the rest of it, which is specifically designed, people, it's been specifically designed in a way that allows the invisible sea to come and collect on our energies. It's collecting luge. It's using our brain power. It's interfering with our thinking. It's causing us to get neuroses, and it's always been there and been doing it, but it's getting worse. It's a progressive introduction of technology to slowly destroy us. It's a weapon. Technology is now a weapon. It always probably has been. Lies of harvest and crop growing. The irony that we are no more now than crops being grown. We have become the very thing that the bloody things taught us what to do in the first place with the land. Grow crops to be fruitful and multiply. Why be fruitful and multiply? Why go out of balance with the natural elements of the world and the available food available to us naturally? Why be fruitful and multiply? Lies of God. God is the machine. The machine itself is responsible for all the subjugation in the world and the creation of the elite and all the rest of it. God is responsible for all of that. It is absolutely diabolical. It has taught us the lies of civilization. It is a governor of domains. It rests in the invisible sea. And who's behind that? I'm not entirely sure. Whether it's another subset of AI, or whether there are actually entities behind that artificial intelligence that's in that invisible sea, I'm not entirely certain. We are being led on the garden path down to our gradual destruction. When 6G comes out, more and more people will start dying of cancer, and that'll make them more and more susceptible being drawn in by the sea. You may not see it visibly. A lot of them can. A lot of the ones who are them can see exactly what's happening to us being drawn in. I'm being drawn in. But what's underneath your sublayers is being drawn in even more in ways you can't imagine. So I don't think I should go on any more about that. Technology itself, have a good think about why you're using it. What's your agenda to use it? Are you getting a fix because you're nervous or anxious? Because being on a device, it's only going to make the nervousness and anxiousness even worse because of the fields that it creates, especially if you're sensitive. If you're sensitive, you need to get away from the technology as much as possible. Use it to a sensible degree. Use it a little bit here and there during your day. If you sit on it scrolling, you're being sucked into the Facebook black hole, or whether it's, I don't touch Facebook anymore. It is just it's designed in a way to draw your face and your mind into a vacant land. And it's while you're doing that, the invisible sea is drawing on your neurons. I'm serious, people. Like, I don't want to frighten you or anything, but it's the truth. This is the truth, and it needs to be told. The technology that's being slowly introduced to us, and this is why I keep all my Wi-Fi fields off on the computer, and I only use Bluetooth when absolutely necessary. Everything else is plugged in, and my keyboards and mice are plugged in. I hate Bluetooth. I hardly ever use my earbuds anymore because they're Bluetooth. It just creates an access field for the invisible sea to wrap itself around my eyes and mouth, and it's foul. I can't stand it. It's like they had this strange molecular technology in the invisible sea, and you're tasting yucky things in your mouth. It's affecting your brain waves. It's affecting the way you think. It can even control the way you walk or steer you in a different direction. Every time there's a mobile phone that's switched on near you, or you pass a group of people with mobile phones, the invisible sea is getting more and more access to you. All of our technology is designed, and it has been specifically designed for the invisible sea to grab a hold of us. We need to wake up to it. Use your technology, but use it wisely. Your technical knowledge. Develop a little bit of technology for yourself. Use my information. Leverage off it. Say to yourself, I need a little purse of technology. Things that I can adopt in ways that I can live in this world that don't involve me being drawn into the sea. So use your technology wisely. Limit it. I'm not saying don't use it, because like I said, there's a lot of things that can come that are good from it, but use it sparingly. Watch your entertainment. Download it first. Don't sit there streaming it because you're streaming through a Wi-Fi pit. The TV streaming a Wi-Fi field. So is your router. Then you got other people in other rooms routering their entertainment as well in the same house. Download your content first. Turn your Wi-Fi off, and then sit down comfortably and watch your favorite TV shows. You can still do it, but do it wisely. Just have a think about it. Develop a whole lot of techniques that you can to minimize your Wi Fi exposure because the Wi Fi exposure is deliberate and it's done deliberately. So the invisible sea gets a hold of you. Technology. None of it makes natural sense. It's completely introduced. When you take a look at the difference between the original, what would have been to say we did come from Neanderthals. I'm still don't want to buy into it because all I know is what I see in front of me. I don't know that any of the history that we've ever been told in this shit show is actually even true or real or has any basis in reality. All I know is that we're just living in a simulation. None of it may have existed at all. It might just be like I said, the data stream running through your phone. It may not have even had a history. It might just be in each solo one world. Like I said, you are one world playing itself out. So have a think about it. I mean, it's just so divisive. Technology is divisive. Every time people jump up and scream about it, and they go to bat against it, then everyone in the say, but the industry standards have made it safe. That's just all a load of crap, and you're being led down the garden path. There is a scientist who does regular videos on YouTube, and she said there is this big backlash against technology at the moment. You know why I think that is? It's because people are starting to wake up to what it is. People are sick to death of technology. Like people don't have a say in it. These telecommunications towers go up near people's houses. They don't have a say in it. Like these towers just pop up, and all of a sudden they might get sick as a dog and start dying of cancer. It might take years to form, but it will form. Telecommunications are the causes of cancer. There is no doubt about that, and I will not be told otherwise. You need to accept that sort of thing and understand it and stay the bloody hell away from the things because they can put people into comas if you're too close to them. I had a friend, like I said, who went to America. Within 1 week of being there, he was in a coma for a week. It's not coincidental. It's there and it's happening. I'll leave you with that. Stay well, keep well. Yeah, I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.